You are creating exactly what you fear most. Every obsessive worry, every thought of scarcity, every silent fear functions as a direct order to your subconscious mind. And it obeys without question. While you believe you're just being cautious or realistic, you're actually programming your own defeat. The worst part is that nobody taught you this. Nobody told you that your thoughts aren't just passive reflections of reality, but rather its architects. Joseph Murphy discovered something that most people ignore to this day. The dominant idea is always accepted by the subconscious. It doesn't matter what you say you want. What counts is what you feed most frequently and with the most emotional intensity. And if you spend your entire life focusing on what you don't want, your subconscious interprets this as, this is what he wants, and works tirelessly to deliver exactly that. But there is a specific, scientifically understandable technique that allows you to completely reprogram this system. 15 minutes a day can change your entire life trajectory. And you're going to discover exactly how to do this now, the way Itzhak Bentov would explain it, with clarity, depth, and absolute truth. Have you ever stopped to observe how people live in circles? They fear losing their job and suddenly get fired. They run from relationships for fear of being abandoned and end up alone. They worry obsessively about money and the scarcity only increases. It seems like coincidence, but it's not. What's happening here is one of the most powerful and least understood principles of human consciousness. Our fears function as direct commands to the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind doesn't have the capacity to judge whether something is good or bad for you. It doesn't care if you're asking for prosperity or misery, health or sickness, love or loneliness. Its job is singular, to execute the instructions it receives. And where do these instructions come from? From your dominant thoughts, from your most intense emotions, from the mental images you feed day after day. The problem is that most people don't realize they're sending destructive orders all the time. They wake up thinking about what can go wrong, spend the day reinforcing worries, and fall asleep anxious about the future. Each thought loaded with fear is like a seed planted in the fertile soil of the subconscious, and that seed will inevitably germinate. Look around you. That person who keeps repeating, I can never save money, really never can. The one who says, relationships always end badly for me, sees all their romances crumble. It's not bad luck. It's not cruel fate. It's mental programming in action. The subconscious mind is simply following the script that was written for it. And here's the detail that changes everything. If you can program your mind for failure without even realizing it, you can also consciously reprogram it for success. But first, you need to understand how this mechanism really works. Fear is an extremely powerful emotion. It carries an intense emotional charge, and the subconscious mind responds much more strongly to everything that comes accompanied by emotion. You can repeat positive affirmations 1,000 times mechanically, without feeling anything, and they will have no effect. But a single moment of panic, one episode of genuine terror, is enough for a limiting belief to install itself deeply. Why? Because emotion is the language the subconscious understands best. It's as if you're shouting at it. This is important. Pay attention. Record this forcefully. So, every time you worry intensely about something, every time you feel that tightness in your chest thinking about bills, losses, rejection, you're literally ordering your subconscious to build exactly that reality. And it obeys without question, without hesitation, without caring if you consciously desire the opposite. It just fulfills what was energetically most emphasized. The person who spends hours per day immersed in thoughts of scarcity can't attract abundance, no matter how many manifestation techniques they try. The background program keeps running, sabotaging every conscious effort. It's like trying to fill a bucket with holes. You can pour water all day, but as long as the hole is there, the result will always be the same. And the most fascinating thing is that this process happens completely automatically. Nobody wakes up in the morning and consciously decides, today I'm going to destroy my chances of happiness. But that's exactly what happens in practice through constant focus on the negative. The subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what you want and what you don't want. It only recognizes what you put attention and emotion on. If you think, "I don't want to get sick," the subconscious captures sick with the emotional charge of fear. If you repeat, "I can't lose this job," it registers lose job accompanied by anxiety. The not simply disappears in translation because the subconscious works through images, sensations, and feelings, not through linguistic negatives. Now you're beginning to understand why so many people live trapped in destructive patterns. They don't know they're operating an extremely powerful machine with the wrong manual. They keep pressing buttons without understanding what each one does, and then are surprised by the result. But just as you learn to program your mind for failure unconsciously, you can learn to reprogram it consciously and intentionally. And this brings us to a crucial point about how the mind really operates and how we can take control of this process. Joseph Murphy, one of the greatest scholars of the power of the subconscious mind, left a truth that many ignore. The dominant idea is always accepted by the subconscious. It doesn't matter what you say you want, it doesn't matter your superficial intentions. What really counts is what dominates your mental space, what you feed most frequently and intensely. If you spend 5 minutes a day visualizing success and 5 hours worried about problems, which of these ideas do you think will dominate? The answer is obvious, but most people act as if it weren't. The structure of the mind can be understood through a simple but profound metaphor. Your consciousness is like a ship sailing the seas of existence. The conscious mind is the captain on the bridge. He observes the horizon, makes decisions, charts routes, gives orders. The subconscious mind is the entire crew working in the lower compartment. They don't see the ocean, don't question the destination, don't debate the wisdom of received orders. They simply execute each command with absolute perfection. If the captain orders, "Turn left toward the rocks," the crew turns left toward the rocks. Not because they want to destroy the ship, but because that's their function, to obey without question. The big problem is that most people don't realize they're in command. They think they're passengers on their own ship, at the mercy of destiny's waves and winds. They complain about the direction their lives are taking without realizing they're the ones sending the coordinate. Each thought is an order. Each emotion is an urgent command. Each belief is a program running continuously in the background. And the subconscious, like a loyal crew, follows all these instructions with surgical precision. What makes all this even more fascinating is that repeated thoughts, even negative ones, create deep neural pathways. It's like walking every day through the same shortcut in the middle of a field. At first, the grass is high and you need to make an effort to pass through. But after weeks, months, years stepping in the same place, a clear path forms, easy, automatic. Your thoughts work exactly like this. Every time you think, "I'm not good enough," that neural pathway strengthens. Every time you feel anxiety about money, the path deepens. Each repetition makes the pattern more automatic, until it simply becomes who you are. Not because you consciously chose it, but because you fed that seed every day without realizing it. The subconscious mind has no agenda of its own. It doesn't wake up in the morning planning to sabotage your life. It's neutral, impartial, like a computer executing the code that was installed in it. If the program says failure, it creates failure. If it says prosperity, it creates prosperity. The difference lies only in the instructions you provide. And these instructions are given through your habitual thoughts, your internal conversations, the stories you tell yourself about who you are and what's possible for you. Think about the people around you. The one who always considers herself unlucky really seems to have bad luck in everything. The one who sees herself as a victim of circumstances constantly finds new circumstances to victimize herself. The one who believes the world is hostile experiences hostility wherever she goes. This doesn't happen because the universe conspired against them. It happens because their subconscious minds are creating experiences that confirm dominant belief. The subconscious seeks validation for the installed program, and it's incredibly efficient at this. You might be wondering, but if it's that simple, why can't I just decide to think differently and change everything? The answer lies in the nature of the programs already running. They were installed over years, often in childhood, through constant repetition and intense emotional charge. They've become automatic, invisible, part of your identity. You don't question them because they seem to be simply reality. But they're not reality. They're just interpretations, filters, lenses through which you see the world. And these lenses can be changed, but this requires understanding where they came from and how they were installed in the first place. These lenses we mentioned, these filters through which you see reality, began to be installed long before you were conscious of what was happening. The young child has no mental defenses. She doesn't question, doesn't filter, doesn't analyze critically. Everything the adults around her say is absorbed as absolute truth. If parents constantly repeat that money doesn't grow on trees, that life is hard, that rich people are dishonest, that we're not the type of family that prospers, each of these statements goes straight to the subconscious as a permanent instruction. And there it remains recorded, secretly shaping every future decision about money, work, worthiness, and possibilities. A child who grows up hearing, "You never do anything right," develops an internal programming of incompetence. Even if later, in adult life, she achieves diplomas and professional recognition, something inside will continue to sabotage success. She'll find subtle ways to sabotage important projects, to lose opportunities at the last moment, to make inexplicable mistakes in crucial situations. Not because she's incapable, but because the program running in the background says, "You never do anything right," and the subconscious is just following the old order. The ship's crew continues following the coordinates that were set decades ago, even though the conscious captain today wants to go to a completely different destination. The cycle of scarcity works precisely through this mechanism. Someone who was programmed with the belief that we'll never have enough develops automatic behaviors that perpetuate lack. This person can earn more money, but will always find ways to spend it impulsively or lose it in bad investments. Can receive a promotion, but will unconsciously create conflicts that make them lose the position. The subconscious isn't trying to punish anyone. It's just maintaining coherence with the installed programming. If the program says scarcity, it will create scarcity to validate that internal truth. It's like a thermostat. Whenever the temperature rises too much, it turns on the air conditioning to bring it back to the programmed point. The fascinating thing is that these beliefs don't need to make logical sense to exercise absolute power over your life. A person can rationally know that money is just energy, a neutral instrument of exchange. But if deep in their subconscious it's recorded that money is dirty, that spirituality and prosperity don't mix, that good people don't care about wealth, they will unconsciously repel financial opportunities. Will reject lucrative proposals without apparent reason. Will feel guilty when receiving payment for their work. Will find elaborate excuses to remain in limitation. And all this will happen so naturally that they won't even notice they're sabotaging themselves. The automatic sabotage behavior is perhaps the cruelest aspect of this process. Because you really want to change. Your conscious mind is genuinely committed to transformation. But at the crucial moment, something inexplicable happens. You fail to make the important call. Forget the appointment that could change everything. Say the wrong thing at the wrong time. Get sick precisely on the day of the big opportunity. And then you wonder why this always happens to you, without realizing that the always is precisely the evidence of subconscious programming in action. Well-intentioned parents, trying to protect their children from life's disappointments, end up installing limitation programs. Teachers who say, "Be realistic, not everyone can be successful," are programming mediocrity. Society as a whole, with its collective beliefs about what's possible and impossible, about who deserves and who doesn't, functions as a large mass programming system. And most people spend their entire lives operating with the software that other people installed in them, without ever questioning whether those programs actually serve them. But the subconscious, as powerful as it is not unalterable. It just obeys. And if it was programmed by repetition and emotion in the past, it can be reprogrammed through the same principles now. But to do this effectively, you first need to understand the fundamental rules of this reprogramming process. The first and most crucial of these rules is so simple that many ignore it: never end a sentence negatively. It seems silly, but this is one of the most common ways to sabotage your own reprogramming. Every time you look at something you desire and say, "I can't afford this," you're reinforcing the limitation program. Every time you think, "I can't do that," you're sending a direct order to the subconscious. And remember, it doesn't understand the not. It only captures the image and associated emotion. So, every negative sentence is actually affirming exactly what you don't want. The language we use with ourselves shapes the reality we experience, not in a magical or mystical way, but through the practical and biological mechanism of the subconscious mind. Each word carries a charge, each sentence builds a mental image, and these images become the instructions the subconscious follows. If you want to reprogram your mind, you need to take absolute control over what comes out of your mouth and what goes through your head. This doesn't mean pretending problems don't exist. It means reframing how you relate to them. Instead of, "I can't afford this," you can say, "I'm creating ways to have this." Instead of, "I never succeed," you reframe to, "I'm learning to succeed." Small changes in language create large changes in programming. The second fundamental rule is about where you place your focus. Focus is like a mental spotlight. Everything it illuminates grows in importance and power. If you spend all day focusing on what you fear, on what can go wrong, on lurking dangers, your subconscious interprets this as, "This is what matters, this is what you want." And it begins to work to materialize exactly that. The correct focus isn't to deny challenges or pretend everything is perfect. It's to consciously direct your attention to where you want to go, not where you fear to fall. Every minute you spend visualizing the desired outcome is an investment in reprogramming. Every minute lost ruminating about the worst possible scenario is a reinforcement of the old program. Many people confuse worry with responsibility. They think if they don't constantly worry, they're being irresponsible or naive. But worry doesn't solve anything. It just programs the subconscious to create more situations that justify more worry. Responsibility is taking action based on wisdom, not on fear. It's doing what needs to be done while maintaining focus on the solution, not the problem. The problem needs to be acknowledged, of course. But after being acknowledged, your energy should move completely to the solution. Because where your energy goes, your creative power goes. The third rule is to understand that external reality is always a reflection of internal state. This may sound strange at first, but observe your life honestly. People who live in internal conflict attract external conflict. Those who carry inner peace navigate difficult situations with inexplicable ease. Those who feel abundant inside find abundance outside, even in apparently limited circumstances. And those who feel lacking inside live in scarcity outside, even having resources. This isn't coincidence. It's the principle of correspondence in action. The external world organizes itself to correspond to the internal world, because your perception, your choices, your reactions, all of this is filtered through your subconscious belief. So, trying to change the world around you without changing your thoughts first is like trying to change your reflection in the mirror without changing your expression. You can yell at the mirror, you can try to push it, you can even break it. But as long as your expression remains the same, the reflection will always be the same. The only way to transform the reflection is to transform yourself. The only way to change external circumstances is to reprogram the internal patterns that are creating them. This transfers power back to you. You no longer need to wait for the world to change to be happy. You change internally and the external world begins to reorganize in response. This understanding is liberating because it puts you in the driver's seat of your own experience. But it's also scary because it means taking total responsibility. You can't blame the government, the economy, your parents, the past, luck, or anything else anymore. Everything begins and ends in your mind. And if everything begins there, that means you have much more power than you imagined. But it also means that certain dangerous programs that most people carry need to be identified and uninstalled immediately. Among all the destructive programs people carry, 3 stand out for their frequency and the damage they cause. The most insidious of them is envy disguised as opinion. Have you noticed how common it is for people to criticize others' success? They see someone prospering and immediately start, must have done something wrong to get that, probably has connections, beginner's luck. That kind of success doesn't last. Each of these criticisms seems like just a neutral observation, a realistic analysis of the situation. But what's really happening at the subconscious level is much deeper and more dangerous. Every time you negatively judge someone else's success, you're programming your own subconscious to reject success. The mind doesn't make a distinction between his success and success in general. It just registers that success is something bad, suspicious, unworthy. And if success is something negative in your internal programming, how do you expect to attract success to your own life? The subconscious will block it automatically to maintain coherence with your belief. You can work hard, do everything right, but something will always go wrong at the last moment. Because deep down, you programmed that success is something to be rejected, not celebrated. The uncomfortable truth is that criticizing others' success is the way the ego found to justify its own failure. It's easier to say they were lucky than to admit, I'm not doing what's necessary. It's more comfortable to believe the game is unfair than to recognize you're playing with the wrong rules. But every time you choose this mental path, you're digging deeper the hole of your own limitation. The antidote to this program is simple, but requires courage. Genuinely celebrate others' success. See someone prosper and think, if it's possible for this person, it's also possible for me. Use others' success as proof of what's achievable, not as a reason for resentment. The second dangerous program is excessive effort. Our culture glorifies hard work to the point of exhaustion, and this has created a distorted belief that results only come through suffering. People literally pride themselves on sleeping little, having no time for anything, living stressed. As if this were a badge of honor. But forcing results, trying to control every detail, working to exhaustion, all of this actually blocks the natural flow of solutions. The subconscious works best in a state of relaxation. The best ideas appear in the shower, on walks, in moments of rest. Not because you're being lazy, but because your conscious mind finally got out of the way and let the subconscious work. Excessive effort comes from a deep belief that you don't deserve to receive easily, that you need to prove your worth through suffering. But the universe doesn't ask for sacrifices. It responds to clarity of intention, not to the amount of desperate effort. A person who trusts the process works with lightness, does what's necessary without anxiety, without this neurotic need to control everything. And curiously, it's this person who gets the best result. Because they're not blocking the flow with tension. They're allowing things to organize naturally, while doing their part with clarity and confidence. The third program, perhaps the most common of all, is fear disguised as realism. How many times have you heard someone say, "I'm just being realistic," before dumping an avalanche of negativity on a dream or project? This supposed realism is nothing but fear dressed in more socially acceptable clothes. People are so terrified of disappointing themselves, so afraid of trying and failing, that they prefer not to even start. And to justify this paralysis, they wear the mask of realism. They say they're being prudent, that they're protecting themselves from future frustrations. But what they're really doing is canceling their dreams before even giving them a chance to exist. True realism recognizes challenges, but doesn't give up because of them. True realism plans, prepares, acts with wisdom. Fear disguised as realism simply gives up right at the beginning and then creates elaborate rationalizations about why giving up was the smart choice. Every time you doubt your own dream using this mask of realism, you're programming your subconscious to accept mediocrity as final destiny. And the worst part is that this program is socially accepted. People will even praise your sensibility, your maturity, without realizing you're just burying your potential under layers of well-constructed justifications. These three programs work together, mutually reinforcing each other. Disguised envy keeps you away from success models. Excessive effort ensures you're always too tired to think clearly. And fear disguised as realism prevents you from even trying. But recognizing these programs is the first step to uninstalling them. And the second step is to learn the specific technique that allows you to reprogram the subconscious in a deep and permanent way. The most powerful subconscious reprogramming technique happens at a specific moment of the day. The 15 minutes before you fall asleep. This period isn't random. In this state between waking and sleeping, your brain waves change, your mental defenses lower, and the gate between the conscious and subconscious mind opens wide. Everything you plant at this moment has direct access to your mind's operating system, without the filters and resistances that normally block new programming. It's like having administrator access to your consciousness's computer. What do most people do at this sacred moment? Scroll through social media feeds full of bad news, watch violent programs, or simply collapse into bed carrying all the day's worries. And then they wonder why they wake up anxious, why the same problems keep appearing, why life seems to never change. They're programming the subconscious every night, but in completely the wrong direction. They're using the moment of greatest power and influence to reinforce exactly the programs they want to eliminate. The correct technique involves creating a detailed mental movie of the reality you want to experience. But not just any superficial visualization. It needs to be in first person, as if you were living that moment now. Your eyes are the camera. You're not watching yourself from outside as a spectator. You're inside the scene, experiencing every detail through your own senses. If you want prosperity, it's not enough to imagine money falling from the sky. You need to see yourself walking to the bank, feel the weight of your body in the chair, hear the manager confirming the deposit, feel the texture of the statement paper in your hands. Each sensory detail makes the experience more real for the subconscious. And here's the secret few understand. Emotions and physical sensations are more important than images. The subconscious responds to emotional charge, not to logic or perfect visuals. So, while you create this mental movie, you need to generate the real emotions you would feel if that were already true. Deep gratitude, genuine joy, inner peace, enthusiasm, freedom. Your body needs to physically feel these emotions. Your heart needs to accelerate with excitement or decelerate with peace. Your breathing needs to change. Because the body doesn't distinguish between a real experience and an intensely imagined one. If you can generate the physical and emotional sensations of achievement, the subconscious records that as a real memory, not as fantasy. This process shouldn't last hours. 15 minutes of deep and emotionally charged visualization are worth more than hours of superficial positive thinking. Quality surpasses quantity. You're literally rewriting your neural programming, creating new pathways in the brain, installing new instructions in the subconscious. But after these 15 minutes, comes the part many forget, and that's absolutely crucial. You need to let go. You need to trust. You need to give the subconscious the responsibility of finding the path. This act of letting go is the opposite of the excessive effort we mentioned before. You did your part by clearly programming the desired outcome. Now the subconscious needs space to work. It has access to information, connections, and possibilities that your conscious mind could never calculate. It knows things you don't know. It sees patterns you don't see. But if you stay obsessed, controlling, forcing, doubting, you block the process. It's like planting a seed and then digging it up every day to see if it's growing. You destroy the plant before it has a chance to sprout. True trust isn't blind. It's based on understanding how the mechanism works. You trust because you know you programmed correctly, because you know the subconscious is incredibly powerful, because you know it has already solved much more complex problems in your life without you even noticing. Every heartbeat, every breath, every cell renewing itself, all of this is managed by the subconscious without you needing to think about it. If it can keep an entire body functioning perfectly, it can certainly organize external circumstances to materialize your goals. The story that serves as an example shows exactly this. A person working in a medical office, stuck in a routine that didn't satisfy them, started applying this technique. 15 minutes before sleeping, created the mental movie of a different life. Creating content, impacting thousands of people, living from their own creativity. Felt the real emotions of that reality every night. And then let go, trusted, continued doing their part in the physical world, while the subconscious reorganized the pieces on the board. In a short time, opportunities started appearing. Unlikely connections formed. The YouTube channel grew beyond any rational expectation. The medical office was left behind, not by luck or miracle, but because the subconscious mind was fulfilling the new instructions that had been carefully installed. This isn't the exception. It's the rule. Any person who understands and consistently applies these principles experiences transformations that seem impossible to the eyes of those still operating with old programs. The subconscious mind is the most powerful tool you possess. It can build empires or destroy lives, depending only on how you program it. And now you know exactly how to do this reprogramming. Everything you just learned is worth nothing if it remains just as information in your head. Knowledge without application is just entertainment. So the question that remains is, are you going to continue being a passenger in your own life, or are you finally going to take command? Will you keep blaming circumstances, or will you reprogram the system that creates these circumstances? Tonight, before sleeping, you have a choice. You can grab your phone, scroll the feed, fall asleep with worries, and wake up tomorrow in the same reality. Or you can dedicate 15 minutes to create the mental movie of the life you really want, feel the real emotions of this achievement, and start reprogramming your subconscious now. Which will it be? Because your mind is being programmed anyway. The only question is, by whom? By the news? By fears? By the beliefs other people installed in you? Or by yourself, consciously, intentionally? If this content made sense to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because this journey of consciousness transformation is just beginning, and you won't want to miss the next step.